Yeah, we can go on and on. Horst Fischer, the greatest chops ever. That was certainly his rendition of Hot Canary, and that comes in a little bit later. So I decided, since we're going to do it on Horst Fischer, you don't want to hear me play. Anyway, so that's that. Now, he started off as a young boy as a bit of a prodigy. French horn, piano, violin, could do it all. I mean, he really could. Very, very talented guy. And when he was about 17 years old, he wanted to play commercial music in the studios of Berlin and whatnot. And so he decided to take up trumpet. Now, like all of us, he had an ear for the high notes, and that was what he wanted. But back then in Germany, very, very hard to get decent mouthpieces, and certainly screamer mouthpieces. Okay, so what he did was he took an old hunting mouthpiece. It was an absolute piece of crap. Jerry has a direct replica of it, and I'll show pictures of it. And it was a piece, oh my God, but it was tiny. It was the exact diameter of what we have with the 1SS and the 1SB. Small, but that was all he could find in Germany to get those high notes. So he finally got across the Berlin Wall and got into Berlin. Oh, before that, he was trying to ride his bike, you know, trying to get across the wall, and to his fame and fortune in the studios Berlin and Stuttgart. And a military man sent him back on his bike, and he was driving away. He shot him, and there was a bullet lodged in his back, which caused him excruciating pain the rest of his life, which we'll come back to. When he was 23, he was firmly, you know, in with the studios and the top player in Germany, no question about it. And back then, as is very mainly now, in Germany, the symphonies and orchestras were very often government funded. Now, not necessarily the studio orchestras, but they were, I mean, it was a steady paycheck. It wasn't like, you know, he's getting royalties. Well, he did get royalties, but it wasn't like he was getting per service. He worked 9 to 2, 5 days a week, and then he could go out and work at night. So it was a wonderful, wonderful living, and he was the man. And he made this mouthpiece. Oh my God, you heard. I mean, they called him the German Harry James, and very, very close. Now, are some good pictures of his chops around, but it's hard to get a couple of them. But also, I give homework every now and then. Get on, especially you young guys who don't know who I'm talking about, get on the internet and listen to Horst Fischer. Now, guys, like Harry James, that is not the type of music I want to listen to hours and hours and hours. Give me Maurice and Telemann, and I'll listen to that hours and hours, or the Chicago Symphony playing Mahler Fifth. But this stuff I just have no patience for. Some people do and some people don't. Okay, but especially you young guys, you're not going to love the music. But listen to the trumpet playing. Listen to the tone, the center of tone. It's absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous. Now, up to who he recorded, the G above double C. I mean, that is just, and this was how many years ago? This was back in the 1950s, okay? Now, when he got into studios, he recorded this actual Hot Canary, okay? Now, at the time, as you know, Stan Kenton, lead trumpet player, was Maynard Ferguson. And when Maynard was leaving the band to start out on his own, you know, Stan Kenton fell in love with the screamer, and he heard this, and he called him up, and offered him any job he wanted. Lead, jazz chair, didn't matter. Whatever job he wanted, he could have done both. Okay? Any job he wanted, please come. He says, no. He told him, he says, I'm making more money than Stan Kenton is. And I can be home every night if I want. Okay? So, such is the chops. Also, one other thing, and I don't want to forget. Jerry has two things. He has the direct replica of Horst Fischer's mouthpiece. Of course, he was the big star, and there were a handful of these Horst Fischer mouthpiece to be played. And I tried playing a few notes on it. Oh my God. The fact that now it was tiny, okay? But the fact that this guy could make this tone on that mouthpiece is superhuman. Absolutely superhuman. Now, also what Jerry has, which is absolutely 100% priceless, is a recording of Horst Fischer playing taps. And I tell you what, guys, you know, you hear all the centered Harry James type stuff in the high notes. This guy sounded better than any orchestral, including Herseth, including Mel Broyles. It was gorgeous. And you would have thought it was Phil Smith. It was so round but centered. It was absolutely beautiful on that god-awful mouthpiece. You know, this screamer could play so controlled and so beautifully. Perfect intonation. I wish every trumpet player could have that, listen to it, and say, yep, that's what I want to sound like. That's what I want to sound like. So again, the greatest chops ever, chops. And again, I didn't put him in my top 5 favorite trumpet players because, again, I just can't deal with that music. Okay, but the chops, I'm going to go on a limb, are the best ever. Now, here's a little story, too. When he was working, one of his last jobs, and I'll get to how it happened, he was sort of falling out of favor because of his drinking, okay? And much had to do with the chronic pain that he had with that bullet lodged in his back. But anyway, when he would get drunk, he was very, very angry drunk, and he'd be constantly getting in fights. Guys in the band, guys in the audience. I mean, if he wasn't a genius, the greatest trumpet player in the world, he would have been hounded. But they put up with a lot of his nonsense for a long time. One of his last jobs was a Zurich radio orchestra. And a guy that I played with, a trombone player, I'm not going to use his name, actually played in that orchestra with him, a trombone player. And he said one day, he got drunk and got in a fight, okay? And his chops blew up, swelled up to a size that he couldn't fit them in this tiny mouthpiece. So what he did was he took a trombone mouthpiece and went downstairs and just maniacally hacked off the lead pipe so it would fit in his trumpet. And he played 9 to 2 in the radio orchestra, 9 to 2, 9 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. And my friend, my associate said, couldn't tell the difference. Couldn't tell the difference that he wasn't playing his time, and his chops are, guys, more than anything, that shows it's compression. It's compression. And this guy compressed that you wouldn't believe. Now, again, constantly getting in fights. And he wasn't a big guy. He was only about 5'4". He was smaller than, very stocky guy. Looked like a tough guy when you see him in the pictures. But anyway, with his drinking, okay? And much because of that bullet lodge, and I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know what's going on in his mind. But the drinking got so bad that at the age of 55, he had pawned his trumpet to get more booze. All he had on him when he died was his mouthpiece. And he was found under a train trestle, dead, at 55 years old. Maybe the greatest trumpet player that ever lived. And so again, that's that. But do yourself a favor. The taps is not on the internet. I could not find that anywhere. But there's hundreds of things on YouTube that you can listen to this glorious tone and the articulation and the technique and the flexibility was just off the charts. And I'll show you a picture of his mouthpiece, as you see. And also his chops. Now, I don't put a lot of emphasis, on what the chops look like. But these chops are so perfect in that they are so relaxed and fat and thick. There was no strain whatsoever up to a G above double C, to the point where he could record it. I mean, sublime. So we talk a lot about chops, and I'm going to go again for just chops. Could he do a Maurice Andre thing on a piccolo trumpet? If he felt like it. I mean, the chops were that good. I'm sure he could, but he didn't. So that's one of the reasons he's not in my top group. But for pure chops, I'm going to let him and Harry James fight it out. So anyway, give me your comments down below and tell me what you think. If you have any thoughts about him, a lot of you guys can come up with stuff that maybe my timeline's a little off, whatever. That's a pretty much an outline of the great, maybe the greatest, Horst Fischer. Okay, guys, have a great day. Love you all, and live your life with true power.